All right, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Aladtec overview for dispatch centers. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is David Snyder. I am a sports specialist here with Aladtec, and I'm joined today by one of our system specialists, Matt Zinnel, who'll be walking you through the software of the system. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be going over today. We're going to be giving you just a brief overview about Aladtec, and then I'll be giving it over to Matt to walk through the actual software in the system for your dispatch center. If you have any questions, let me just say this up front. There's a question window there in the GoToWebinar dashboard, and we invite you to ask away those questions as we go through the system. I'll be here monitoring those questions, and if we don't answer you directly, of course, we'll be able to get to those questions at the end, and maybe that'll be a good answer for the group as well. So you'll see that here, and first of all, I'm going to take you through the Aladtec system. So who are we? Well, we're a cloud-based scheduling and workforce management software platform. Our system is designed to handle the unique staffing habits of dispatch and comm centers such as yours and other public safety agencies, of course. We're based right here in the US of A in River Falls, Wisconsin. We're about 30 minutes east of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities area. There's a nice drone shot of our building there. And we started back in 2002 as a web-based scheduling system for just a small local ambulance service. And since then, we've grown to host more than 2,100 organizations with over 135,000 users across the United States and Canada. Our dispatch customers, they range from some small sheriff's department whose entire dispatch, jail, and patrol staff might be a total of, say, 24, to larger consolidated centers who employ 75 members or more. We do everything in-house. Here's a nice picture of some of our staff. We do everything from engineering of the software to configuration to sales and support as well. And the best part is when you call, you get a real person right here in Wisconsin to help you out with any expert advice that you might need. Our system is available from anywhere, from any device. You can access it online via desktop, tablet, smartphone. It updates instantly, changes are live, so users will always have the most current version of the schedules and, of course, any other content available in there. And part of the service is there's no extra costs and everything. Everything is included. We provide all setup, all free training, unlimited telephone support as long as you're a customer. Our system is designed to customize just for your needs. We can create your schedules as unique as your department needs. If you have specific schedule patterns that may not be available in the defaults, we can certainly customize those repeating patterns for your shifts and your members as needed as part of your schedule. All right, that's enough about Aladtec here. Let's get it over into the system here, and I'll hand you over to Matt, and he's going to be able to take you through some of the features and its benefits. And we hope this will help you determine whether it's a system is a good fit for your organization. And don't forget about those questions too. There's the questions area there in the dashboard, and we hope to answer as many of those as we can. And then, of course, we can help you with those answers during the webinar today or afterward if necessary. So with that, I'll pass it on to Matt. Thanks, Matt.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dave, for the intro. And again, I appreciate everyone who's joined us here today and letting me walk you through what we have in terms of a generic system for our dispatch and communications customers. So it should give you a brief idea on how a lot of these features are going to function for you. But as Dave mentioned, you can really customize these features as everybody does things a little bit differently. So I'll be touching on a lot of that today here. And just to kick it off right away, I just want to remind you again that you can, of course, access our system from anywhere being cloud-based. All you really have to do is type in your unique web address. That's going to be aladtec.com / the name of your department there. So that'll be customized just to you. So plug that into your device. It'll take you right to your login screen. And when you log in, this is what it's going to look like on your desktop version. So from here, this is your home page, and you can really customize this first page to add any sort of content on here. So whether that's any sort of images, you can add links that will direct to other sites. You can embed videos for training purposes. Lots of different things you can do to customize this first page and make it your own. Everybody's does look a little bit different. But also on the home page is going to be your dashboard, and that's one of many areas in our system that is going to be customized based on what your access is. So the majority of what we're going to be looking at today is what it looks like as a supervisor. And of course, I have the ability to actually make different approvals in the system. So you'll see any sort of trades that are out there, any signups that are awaiting approval, any time off requests that need some attention. So those will all be listed right there. You'll also see any sort of upcoming shifts on the right side. We do also provide an information expiration report that will really track any sort of expiring licenses or certifications. I'll touch more on that in just a few moments, followed by any sort of events, trades, or discussions are going to be right under that. But with that said, the first place I'm going to be walking you through is the member database before we actually dive into the schedule, as a lot of the information in the database ties into many areas of the program. So you can really track any sort of information that you'd like on this screen, anything from your very basic contact information, date hired, what their actual title is. It's really up to you, as you can customize each of these fields. And there's a lot of different filters located in the top right corner here. And as I mentioned, we do also have the ability to track any sort of expiring licenses like an EMD certification. Get those dates in here, allow us to monitor that. We can manage and maintain those different records right in there. Now, again, this is what it's going to look like as an actual supervisor within the system, but from an end user's perspective, they really only get to see their own profile page. So let's take Frankie here quick, hover over his name and hit Edit Member. And that's going to take us right into that individual's profile page. Now, from here, this is really where you can see their personal information, but it's going to be really just your first name, last name, login password, date hired, all pretty standard data up there. Right under that is going to be where we actually assign them to their different profiles of what particular access level do you belong to. We have different sets of rules that are going to be defined within the work groups that we have also. But right under that is going to be the messaging information. So this is where we encourage each person to enter in their mobile phone number, their email address, and then their mobile phone provider. So that way our system can actually send you the different notifications. So once you get all that set up, then we'll go in here and define some of the different messages that we have. And there's really about 4 different types of messages I'm going to show you here today. These first ones are really more of the automated messages. So each person can pick and choose text and or email in any of these scenarios. So for any sort of signups, time off, or trades, when those are actually approved or denied, what it'll do is make sure it sends you a message letting you know if it was approved or denied for that. Off to the right is going to be your My Alert section, where we have the Find Coverage Alert. We do have different form notifications that can get sent out, but one of the ones I wanted to make sure I highlighted is the upcoming shift reminder. So for anybody who does, if they're making a lot of trades or they're just moving around on the schedule and it's not exactly a fixed rotation, then this can be helpful, as it will send out that message 24 hours before each of your shifts and just remind you of when and where you're actually working that next day. Now, under that is going to be the work qualifications. So this is really, again, going to be another area that's going to be customized based on what your needs are. Some people will just have it set up as one schedule with just a bunch of dispatcher positions within that, but we can get even more specific to different rotating seats, or a telecommunicator 1, 2, or 3 ranked. It really depends on how you want to set up your system, and based on what we've chosen here really regulates what they're allowed to work and what type of positions they can interact with. Under that is going to be the time off accrual section. That's where we can add any sort of profiles here that will automatically add time into those banks. So if this is something that you'd like to use, you don't have to use it as an optional feature, where you can still use the time off in our system without having this enabled. But what it'll do is allow the users to see their banks of time, or how much hours they have ahead of time, because whenever that time off is used within our system, it will automatically deduct from those banks. And we can definitely add any additional types in here as needed. And everything else in this bottom portion is really your customizable area of the database. So if you want to change or add any new fields in here, that's all done right from the Members tab. We'll go to the Database Configurator screen. And this is all built with our different drag and drop tools. So you see that the design options on the left there will have all the different fields that we have. So if you want drop-down menus, checkboxes, you can just pull those right in here, and then you can relabel them as needed. But like I had mentioned with the certifications piece, that's where you can actually have these expiration dates if it is something that does have to be renewed. And we also have recently added an attachment feature. So if you want to pull that one in, you can give that a label, and then from there, that's where either an employee who's managing this themselves, or you can actually have an admin who manages all of this, upload a scanned copy of that if you have that requirement. All right, and then there was one last thing I'm going to show you in the database, and then we'll move right on to the actual schedule itself, and that's going to be the mass messaging feature. So if you did want to send out an email or a text message out to every single person in your roster, it is really just as easy as checking this box in the top left and then clicking on send message. From there, you can do an email and a text, or an email or a text message. And just to clarify, this tool is really more just for general messaging purposes. You really wouldn't use it for any sort of coverage needs if you're trying to fill a shift. So you can either send it out to everybody, or I could even target this to certain groups of people like your supervisors or your part-time also. All right, well, that's about all I have for the database. So let's go ahead and move on to the actual schedule itself. So just to start out here, I'm just going to run through some of the different views that we have, as there's a number of different ways that you can look at all of this information depending on really what's most appropriate to what you're trying to accomplish or what you're even used to seeing. We can set up as a default. But this monthly calendar view, I'd say, is our most popular view. It really gives you the most information all in one screen for who's working, who's off on a given day, why they're off, any sort of trades are all going to be visible right from here. Now, depending on the size of your department, if you have anywhere from 2 to 50 different schedules, the filters are definitely going to come into play, where I can hit this edit link, and that's really going to give me a list of all my different options of what I actually want to look at. So let's say if I want to trim this down, and I'm really just concerned about my day shift, so I can uncheck all the other boxes there, and that's just going to give me a list of my day shift for the month. But like I also mentioned, there are a couple other views here. We have a couple for daily options. So the daily view really gives you more of an hour by hour breakdown for who's working when and where on each shift. And again, I'm going to say this multiple times throughout the webinar, but everybody does design their schedule a little bit differently, especially in dispatch, where some people do like to break it out between days, power, evenings, nights, and kind of separate it that way. But others do also like to just have it kind of all in one schedule block here, where they're all kind of working back to back. It's really just a matter of preference. So we have this daily view, and then I also have another daily summary that's going to give you really more of just that list format of who's working for that day. And then I also wanted to show you this weekly option. So if you prefer more of a 7-day stretch, you can use this one also. All right, next I wanted to dive into actually more of the changes on how Aladtec can help you actually fill a shift if you have a vacancy or you need coverage on a given day. So let's focus here on the 16th, where I have Sandra, who's actually been approved vacation, and she is the supervisor for my evening shift. So since we have an open position there, and that's something that we would actually need coverage for, usually what's done at that stage then is you would send out what we call a find coverage alert. So from here, if I click on this blue envelope, that'll give me a list of all the different open positions that are out there for that day. Where if I check this supervisor box, if that's what I'm trying to fill, then really all I should have to do then is hit send. It should take you about 2 or 3 seconds, because what this tool does for you is it's really only going to send that message to people who are qualified as a supervisor or who are able to fill that. It will exclude anybody who's already working during that shift, and it will also exclude anybody who's on approved time off. So really it's just going to go out to the people who are eligible and able to sign up for that position. Now, if you wanted to be a little more specific in terms of who you're sending that to, maybe you have a part-time group that you would want to target first. I can go under my edit recipients list here. I can choose individuals and do this based on work groups or access levels. So I can really do that a little more manually if needed. But on the bottom right corner, that's where you're going to see a preview of the message. So this is what the email looks like, saying that your department's looking for someone to cover the following. Everything that's in yellow there will be pre-populated based on the information of the shift, and the email will have a link that they can click on. That link will take them right to the system so they can go sign up for that. Or the text message, if they receive that, then they can just open up our mobile site and sign up for it right from there. All right, going back to our schedule here. So now we've sent that out and given it the appropriate amount of time, of course, based on how soon that shift is coming up. But I have Tim and my other supervisor who have actually signed up for this position. So there may be a number of different ways of how you would actually determine who gets approved here. So that's really what I wanted to dive into next in terms of how we can help with that process. So let's go under this evening's shift here and hit edit schedule. And I'm going to have a lot of information down in this bottom section, which we'll cover here in a moment, but I just wanted to stress that this hourly editor is definitely the most important screen in our system for anyone who actually has scheduling access or scheduling rights, as this is where you really make all of your day-to-day changes, adjustments, approvals. Everything can be done right from here. But looking at this bottom section, these are my two people who actually volunteered and signed up for that. And then I can see a couple other people who are just on a regular day off, and then anybody who's on approved vacation or scheduled elsewhere is on the bottom. So again, if you do this based on maybe a first come, first serve basis, just know that all of our signups are date and time stamped, so you can see exactly when that came in down to the minute right there. Also, if it was factored in based on seniority or maybe even hours worked. So I really wanted to highlight this calculator, as a lot of people will use that to determine, when we're trying to reduce overtime. And again, if you have a part-time group, then that can be helpful too, to make sure they're staying under that weekly threshold of staying part-time. So under your edit link, that's where you're going to get a lot of the settings for your calculator. This is where you can say, I'd like to calculate these hours for either the week, month, year to date, pay period. You can do that based on total hours or just overtime hours. And then we can select also up to 7 different items that exist in the member database. For example, I have the date hired field here and their mobile phone number selected. So if I hit apply, then you'll see I just added that overtime column. So once you're ready to make your decision here, then what you can do is click on this sign up for Tim. Let's choose him. So it looks like he said that he can come in early to cover that because he's actually working the following shift. So I'm all good with that. And what we can also do is select a time type for Tim. So this is really more for reporting purposes and just kind of adding an extra layer to the scheduled time. But we can choose that, and we can create as many different codes as you need. Everybody does it a little bit differently. So you could differentiate between paid overtime or comp, training hours, those kind of things. So we're going to choose overtime paid and hit approve here for Tim. So that does a couple of things where Tim's now been added to that position. It does also automatically decline the other sign-up request that was there, and both people do get a message letting them know they were approved or denied for that. And then, of course, that code is now added to Tim's shift. So in our reports, I can see those as overtime hours. Now, there are a couple other ways that we can adjust the schedule from the hourly editor screen, and that's really going to be a drag and drop tool. So let's say if I take Tim out of here, and let's just open that one back up. Sorry, Tim. So from here, I can drag and drop, let's say, Frankie. So if I actually pick up Frankie, but what I'll realize when I pick him up is that I actually can't drop him into that spot because he's not qualified as a supervisor. However, if I did want to take Sue, I could actually just pick her name up and I could move her into that position. So it is really easy to kind of move people around up and down, left and right, however you need. We can also shorten or extend any of these shifts just by grabbing the edge of it and sliding that back and forth. So as you're going in and making those changes for the day, that drag and drop tool can make that really quick and easy. All right. So that's really the basics of the sign up and the hourly editor tool. So I wanted to take a few moments here and move away from some of the admin functions and show you a little bit more what it looks like from the user's perspective. As of course, as many of you know, implementing a new software can move a lot smoother if the user adoption is quick and easy. So that's something that we've put a lot of effort here into at Aladtec, is making sure that the users' tasks and what they need to know in Aladtec is very easy and something that they can pick up quickly. So under the schedules tab is called the My Schedule page. So this screen is really the only page that they need to know how to use as a member within Aladtec. As you can see, when you have to work, it cuts out all the extra information, and this is also where you can put in all of your requests. So let's say, as Frankie here, if I wanted to put in a request for the 19th, all I have to do is click right onto that day. I can hit request time off, or I can hit request trade. So if I hit request time off, that'll give me a range of time. It's going to default to whatever that shift is. So if there are any, if you need to make that shorter or longer, you can definitely come in here and make those adjustments, and then go under your type of time, and we can select a vacation. And the nice part about having those accruals turned on is it will actually show you right here. I currently have 40 hours in my bank. This is going to cost me 8. I'll have 32 after approval. So that'll give you an idea of how much time you actually have, and make sure you do have it. So that's how you put in a time off request. For trades, let's click on the 20th here and hit request trade. So we do have two different types of trades in Aladtec. We do have giveaways, which are really more of a single-sided transaction where you're just going to work for me on this day, and that's the giveaway as a whole. But we do also have swaps, where it actually does require you to offer me a shift back before it even goes up for approval. So we're going to select giveaway here. You can change the time frame. I know a lot of dispatch centers, they do allow you to trade just a portion of your shift. So you can go and trade, just the first 2 hours of my shift, or anything like that. But if we go under the recipients, that's where you can either send this out to everybody who actually can work for you. All the permissions and everything are factoring right into that. But what you can also do that's very common, I was working with Lawrence yesterday. I know he's going to trade with me, so I could send it just to that person and not have to bother everybody. So send out that trade request. That would send Lawrence a message, who can then accept it, and that would go up for approval. And then lastly on this page, I know we were talking about the open shifts scenario. So if I click on open shifts, this will actually show me all the different vacancies that are out there for the month. That will show up right in that purple color there. So there's a couple on the 14th. And if I'm interested in working them, I just have to click right onto it and hit sign up. All right. And for all of those different types of actions, to approve them, there's really a couple of different ways that you can do it, where you can go under this change request page, and that's really just going to give you a list format of everything that's pending, and then everything that's been approved or denied or canceled is all going to be on the bottom. I know a lot of people do like processing their requests from there, but I also generally recommend that you can do it from the calendar, as that way you can also see what's really going on for that day. So on the 17th here, I do have this trade here from Leon. So if I click on that, I can see all the details of when exactly that was submitted, who the recipients are, who accepted that, and then really I get the easy job as the admin, as I can just hit approve, and then that makes the switch right on my calendar. So it also would have sent them a confirmation message that has been approved, and you'll have that permanent trade record there right on that day to let you know what has occurred for that. Time off, as you can imagine, you can just click right onto this request here. You can see again when it was submitted, hit approve or deny. And you do have a note field in all of these, so if you did want to type in a reason as to maybe why you're denying it, then you could do that too. But if we approve this, that'll pull Frankie right off the schedule, and now you have that vacant position there. And then we already walked through the sign up one. So those are really the three main types of request and approve processes. There are a couple other functions here on the schedule in terms of just adding additional information. One of them being the events feature. So you can add an event on a given day. It's really just more informational, where you can click on this and you can see if there's a title, location, a description. You can also regulate who can actually see that. And then we also have a note feature. So if you hovered over the day shift here, I can hover over that, hit add note, and from there, that will show up essentially like a post-it note right in the schedule. And then whoever's working that day, it'll be attached right to their shift. So I mentioned this early on, but I just wanted to go through it one more time here again, is that everybody does look at their schedules a little bit differently. So even if it's something as having the consecutive shifts, if you have a lot of staggered shifts, even these different positions, we can keep them anything from generic positions all the way to the different seats that people might rotate through periodically. So those can all be built with our repeats and rotations tool. So it doesn't really matter how complex it is. We can custom program a lot of these different repeats and rotations, and then have people mapped out for, as far as 2 to 3 years in advance. So as long as there is a pattern behind it, then we can get it structured in really however you'd like. So it's just a matter of communicating that to one of the system specialists, and they can get that built out for you. All right. So that's about it in terms of the basics of the schedule itself. So I did want to take everybody through the mobile site really quick, and then we'll dive into some of the reports and things just to wrap up from there. But let's go under our mobile site and give you a little overview on that. So I would imagine that the vast majority of the actual dispatchers are going to be using the system on their smartphone. They may never even log into the desktop version, because they can really do everything from here that they need to. So when you first log in, it's going to tell you when you are actually scheduled to work next. So any upcoming shifts. We do have any sort of trades that you might be involved in, any open shifts that you might want to sign up for, upcoming time off, and upcoming events. So everything I just talked about right there on your dashboard on the main screen. But if you tap on the menu in the top right corner, that'll give you the option to view the daily summary. If you're a little more curious as to, I'm trying to trade away my shift, who's also working that day. So you can see who's just working that day, or you can click on your calendar here to actually choose which day you are viewing. And we also do have the My Schedule page, which is basically identical to the screen I was just showing you prior on the desktop version, where you can interact with any of these days. Let's say I'm going to be calling in sick tomorrow, so I can just tap right on the 15th here. We'll tap on that one, and then this is where you can say request trade or request time off. So pretty straightforward. And again, training on all of this is very quick and easy. We have a lot of great material that can always be referenced and help out with that process. So moving away from the schedule a little bit here, but again, if there's any questions or scenarios I didn't get addressed as I was going through that, feel free to drop those in the questions so Dave can look at those, or I can address them later. But let's look at the Forms tool next. So the Forms tool is really something that you can use to customize and build really any sort of forms that you want. And it can be used for a number of different things. If it's just a basic request form, anything even like a coaching and counseling form is one that I've seen used before. So we can create something like that. A daily supervisor report is a common one. Just to scroll through a couple of these quick here. And then if there's any sort of equipment problems. And we can structure in a lot of different workflow into these two, where let's say if you have equipment problems, whenever you fill this out, I can have the system automatically email the person who manages these. So that way they can be aware of it. They can even have their own little section on the bottom where they can type in a status of, maybe I had to order a part before that's going to be fixed, put the action taken right in there. We can really get pretty creative with these. And like I mentioned, you can build these yourself. So if we go to design new form, it's all going to be drag and drop. So very similar to the actual member database. You'll see all the different options here. We also have those attachments that we can add in if you need to take a picture of something. Electronic signatures we can add to that. And then a lot of different layout and smart field options there on the bottom. So really an unlimited number of ways that we can create and customize these forms for you. All right. And moving on to the reports, I'm just going to start off with some of the scheduled time report, as this is going to really pull in any sort of information that's on the schedule. So any actual scheduled time, any PTO that's been taken, really anything you'd like, and that can all be filtered under your edit link here. If I expand that quickly, so let's say if you just wanted to pull it for a specific overtime code, let's say you are using those heavily, I could really drill down and just get the numbers I need for a specific code. And of course, during any range, so week, pay period, month, quarter one, anything in there that we can definitely define that range for you. So this is one of our main options for capturing scheduled time. We do also have a summary report that's going to give you a total number of hours that each person has worked within the range. A little less information, but still gives you that final number. And all of our reports that we do have, they do all export into a CSV or Excel format. So you can take this information out, and if you need to reformat it in any way or send it elsewhere attached to an email, it's definitely very easy to do so by exporting all of that data. All right, and then one other report I wanted to run you through is going to be the system log. So the system log really tracks every single action that's ever taken within our system. So before I dive into some of the reasons this is important, I did want to take a quick second here and give me a couple moments to breathe while I launch another poll. So I'm curious as to how people are currently managing the scheduling at your agency. Are you doing spreadsheets? Are you doing it on a whiteboard? Is it more of a manual process? As a lot of people who are, coming from a different system, then you might be familiar with a lot of these things, but if you're using more of a manual process, then I can definitely relate to some of those different struggles you might be running into. All right, we'll just leave this open here for another second quick. All right, so it looks like the majority are actually still using a spreadsheet solution, which is very common. I'd say the vast majority of the people who come to us looking for help are still using a spreadsheet solution. So as you can imagine, with this system log, having a little bit more accountability can be very important of who took that action, what did they do, who it affected. You don't have people going into your spreadsheet and breaking your formulas and wondering who went in there. You can have all this information right here, always be able to reference back and see why that happened and exactly when it happened. So definitely wanted to touch on that. We also do have another tool here in the realm of accountability is called the required messages. So let's click on required messages and say, all right, we have a new policy, and almost everybody uses this tool in a little bit of a different way, but it has a lot of great value in terms of making sure that people are seeing your messages. So I can say there's the new policy, and that is going to, you have to bring me coffee every day. So you can type in whatever you want there and send that out to whoever you'd like. So I'm going to send this out to Frankie. And the next time Frankie actually logs into Aladtec, this is what he's going to see. So from here, the benefit is he can click on whatever he wants, and it's impossible to bypass this message. You do have to check this box that says, I agree that I've read and understand it, and hit continue to actually access the system. So that does a couple of things, mainly, of course, giving you, again, the ability to pull up and see who has acknowledged your message or who hasn't yet, and when exactly they did. And a lot of people do use that in conjunction with the storage area. So if you are doing a required message requesting that they actually review a certain policy or some sort of training material that's been released, you can actually upload those right into the storage area here. And then that'll give them access to get to that information really from anywhere. All right, moving over one more tab is going to be our discussions. So this feature is really where you can create a topic And then after you've created that topic, people can come in and make comments on it. You can have that documented thread here. So if you have some sort of discussion on maybe, what do you guys think of this new software, or how is this working for you if it's a new type of product, then you can create something like that in here, have that dialogue, and then give everybody quick access to that. One thing a lot of people do too is if that's really something you're more looking to use just for, your supervisor level, we can trim it down that way also. All right, and then lastly on our navigation is going to be our help section. This is where we have a lot of our different help videos. Those are going to be specific to all the different areas within the system, so feel free to take a look at those. I also wanted to point out we do have a video for our mobile version that's going to walk you through how to actually set it up on your smartphone. So during your trial, you can always check that out and see what it would look like on your phone. And then we also do have a lot of different blog articles. So we will release those for any big feature releases or anything that we believe requires to have some additional written content, and that can always be shared with people too. But aside from all the features, really the last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the demo itself is going to be our support team. So right under the help tab is the contact us page. So you can call in to our 888 number. We are primarily staffed Monday through Friday, 8 to 6 Central. Anything outside of those hours, we can be reached on the emergency contact line. And then we also do have an email address here that you can use. So really what I wanted to stress is that, my favorite part when you call in to our support team is you don't have to talk to a machine. You don't have to sit in a queue and wait and listen to some hold music, anything like that. You're going to get a live person on the phone right away who's ready to help you and is an expert within the system. But with all that said, that is really the majority of the demo I wanted to run through. So what we can open it up to next here are any sort of additional questions. So if there was a scenario that maybe I didn't cover, feel free to drop that into the questions section, and I will be happy to go through those right now. All right, let's see what our first question is here. Okay, so it looks like someone had a question on trades, and they do currently require that all of their trades are paid back within a certain time frame. So if we go under to our setup area, this is where I can go to workgroups. And the nice part about workgroups too is we can set up as many different types of rules that you need. And especially if those are going to apply to people differently. So if we go under the work groups, there is a section for trades. And like I'd mentioned earlier, this is where you can do giveaways and swaps or turn off one or the other. And from there, I can, for swaps, also require that they're paid back within, let's say, the same pay period. So that's essentially going to guarantee that you're not generating any additional overtime by turning on that feature. While we're in here, though, just on the very similar topic, I did also want to show everybody the different work limits. This is one of those features that it kind of just works in the background, so you never really see it until it's very important. But essentially what we can set up is for contiguous hours, we can say, I really don't want anybody working more than 16 hours in a row. We can also do total hours. That's a little more common for your part-time staff to make sure they're staying under, a certain threshold during the week, so they actually are still considered part-time. And then for minimum time off, we can also set that to be, it's very common to have at least 8 hours in between shifts. So we can set those up, and if you ever take an action within the system that would have someone actually placed into those positions, where it would break that rule, then the system will give you a warning and make sure that you're aware of that. All right, another question here. Someone had noticed the time clock tab and they were kind of curious as to what that is. So I can give you a quick little rundown on our Aladtec time clock. So it is going to be a web-based kiosk, and we can set this up on really as many different machines as you'd like and actually authenticate that they are where they say they are by doing so. And from there, you can actually select the person's name, they would type in their password, and then they would hit clock in or clock out to record those numbers. And if you're going to be using some of this data for payroll, then that gives you really more specific records that are going to be down to the minute or their particular increment that you're looking for. But the nice part about having the time clock built into our scheduling system is we, of course, know when they should be working. And from there, you can set up these grace periods. And it's very common to say, all right, I'm okay with people clocking in about 15 minutes early, but I really don't want people clocking in more than 5 minutes late. And then if anyone does punch in or out outside of that window, what it'll do is pop up a window and require them to type in a reason as to why they're doing so, so that when you are actually going in and reviewing those records, which that is done from the time clock hours page here, you can compare against when they were actually scheduled to when they actually did show up and clock in for work. See. All right, let's go back up to our questions here and see what else we have. All right, it looks like someone was looking for a little clarity on the actual mobile site itself. So the smartphone application, it's not something that you would actually download from like your Google or your Apple store, as it is just a mobile version. But that has a lot of different positives in terms of you never really have to update it, for one, and also we make so many updates to the Aladtec site that they would constantly be rolling in. So you always have the most up-to-date version, and it doesn't keep up or it doesn't take any space on your phone. All right, Eric here, looks like you got another question here. Give me one moment, we'll read that quick. We have 1 over 30 hours a week. All right, so it looks like so they generally have any sort of overtime over 40 hours, but also any hours that are adjacent to a shift. Employees hire back, they're not connected to. So I think the majority of the reporting for that is all going to be regulated based on our time types, where you can really mark any of the ones that are just adjacent to a shift. So if I'm understanding that correctly, even though they might be under 40, if they are staying late or coming in early, you can definitely make sure that you do tag that piece of time as a particular type of overtime code. So for instance, if I take Elmer here and I go in, I can use these time types to say it's this unique type of overtime, adjacent to a shift. And then when you add that in there, you can have that reported on that way, where we also can have just a standard give me a 40-hour a week calculation. There's a couple different ways to do that. All right. Just one moment for me here quick. So I had someone ask about the accruals, and they were looking for more of a report on how we can review and maintain those. Sounds like they do track a lot of comp time. So what we can do with the accruals is from the member database. So keep in mind that the scheduled time report is going to show you all the actual hours that they have used. But within the database, that's where we can generate the report that will give you all the hours that they have. So we don't have numbers in all these banks right now, but you can really review them this way. You can also go in and you can click any of these banks. So if you are the admin who actually has these rights, you can always go in, either add or subtract to those banks, and then type in a note as to why you're doing so. And I think one also big benefit to the accruals that some people overlook is you're also giving the user the ability to see their history on that bank. So if I'm ever going in here and questioning, why do I only have 32 hours? They don't really have to go to you with that question, as I can click on my little history clock there, and what it'll show me every single action or every addition and deduction that's ever happened to that bank, when it happened, and it'll have any of the notes associated with that change right there. All right. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, so I think the last question we'll wrap up with here looks like someone was just curious on the pricing of the Aladtec system. So I can give you kind of a rough range, but that is something where if you're looking for more of an accurate figure, you would have to get a hold of one of our account executives, and they can give you an exact figure quote. But just to give you an idea, we do have a base pricing of anybody who's 41 users and under. It is going to be based on the number of active users within your system, but generally speaking, our pricing is going to be anywhere between $5 to $7 per user per month, depending on exactly what your needs are for the Aladtec system. But overall, that's about everything that I have here for you today. I did want to point out that on the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel, there are 2 handouts there, PDFs, so feel free to download those or some additional information. If you have any additional questions, though, you can always, of course, give us a call at the 888-749-5550 or visit our website at www.aladtec.com for any additional details, customer reviews, videos, and everything like that. But again, I hope that everything we've shown you here today gives you a better idea on how Aladtec can help streamline a lot of your different schedule-related tasks. And thank you all again, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.